Hi, this is Barb Crowley, and welcome to Metaphysics, A View Through the Veil. Today, we're talking to Nick Lasky. And Nick is a renowned metaphysical teacher specializing in astrology, tarot divination, meditation. I almost said mediation. We might need some of that. And he uses a unique blend of ancient wisdom and modern interpretations. He inspires audiences worldwide, and I've brought him on to inspire us. So, welcome to the show, Nick. I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm super happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. So, tell me your story. We're meeting for the first time today. So, tell me your story. How
That's
did you
right.
become spiritual?
Yeah, and through our mutual friend John Oliver is
John
how we
Oliver,
got
who's
connected.
yeah, immensely entertaining and great talker. Yeah.
Yeah, and he has played a big role in my spiritual awakening journey.
Hmm.
So I'll have to bring him up. So around 2012, I had a humongous spiritual awakening. I was traveling, going to music festivals, and opening up my awareness as to what was possible,
Hmm.
coming from a more traditional life approach and being in business school and things like that.
Yeah.
And then I had this wild spiritual awakening where
Was it like a Kundalini rising kind of thing? Or
absolutely,
it was, yeah.
absolutely. And yeah, you can use many different words for it. It
Hmm.
was a Kundalini awakening, it was a spiritual transformation. I, some of the few key aspects of it are I started having psychic experiences. Like I would hear people thinking next to me, or I would start having premonitions
Yeah.
of things that were going to happen. And the synchronicities
Hmm.
became insane in terms
Yeah.
of what I was thinking or something that was happening. And then you hear it on the radio immediately, or some license plate or some car passes right in front of
Yeah.
you,
It's not
And so
like
I
you
started,
talk about something and now it's on your phone. Not like that, right?
and that's a little engineered synchronicities.
Yeah.
There's something else going on
It's
there.
kind of weird, but it's happening all the time now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And the other thing
So,
I'd like to ask too, did it happen like a Kundalini rising in my idea of it, and this could be very wrong,
mhm.
happens in a week or almost in a couple day period very quickly. And then spiritual awakenings are over more time, more gentle in a way.
That's right.
Kundalini awakening sometimes can put you right into a crazy house,
Totally. Oh yeah,
blow
for
your
a
head off.
while there, I
Yeah, yeah.
definitely was a little crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, to be honest, my perspective is that everyone actually is crazy
Mhm.
until you're enlightened.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Really,
Never
we're
thought of
just
it that
varying
way.
degrees of
Yeah.
crazy. And then there's
Yeah.
okay crazy where you should probably get some help with that crazy. But yeah, in the modern context of society, there's not the place for spiritual awakenings. It's much more now than it was back then. And I'm
Right.
sure when you had your spiritual awakening, but
Yeah.
before there weren't the same resources or access to people that you could resonate with and hear what their journey was.
Mhm.
So it was for me, for a while, it was a little lonely in that process until I started finding mentors and teachers and context for what was happening.
Yeah.
But as far as the spiritual versus the Kundalini awakening, I think you're absolutely right. The spiritual awakening was the peak of it was many months,
Mhm.
and then totally followed by a dark night of the soul, like crushing, soul
Yeah. Yeah.
wrenching journey of existential crisis.
Mhm.
But the Kundalini awakening process, I would say, happened like a few little spurts. There was an initial activation of energy, but then later on, we're going to fast forward to meeting the spiritual teacher that I've studied with, which is a channeled teacher named Jerome.
Mhm.
The first time that I ever sat with Jerome in a session, in a public session, I had something that is referred to as Shaktipat. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of
I
that
don't know
term.
that. Yeah. I don't know
It's
that.
basically when a student meets their teacher for the first time, or like a student, this was very common, I think, with a lot of the Indian gurus that came over here, or
Hmm.
people in the West going over to the East, and some energetic transmission that just hits you like a Mack truck,
Wow.
where there's some energy transference that totally lights up your whole motherboard, the whole
Yeah,
system.
yeah, yeah,
And that happened to me, and it was literally like being struck by lightning.
yeah. I've
And then
heard
after,
about that happening. That's never happened to me. But when I'm in the presence of teachers, I can see the electricity to others, but they're not my teachers. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? So
Yeah,
I know what's going on, but they're not my teachers. So it's not coming to me, but I can see it coming to them. So
yeah,
it's pretty wild. Yeah.
it was something completely unexpected, unplanned for. It literally just happened
Mm-hmm.
and totally lit something up within me.
Yeah.
And I still study with Drome to this day. The third piece, let's say, of the Kundalini awakening.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just define Kundalini. I'm assuming a lot of folks that are listening know what
Oh,
Kundalini
I'm
is, but
glad you're doing that. That's true. Yeah.
I think it's always useful, not to presume that
Yeah.
everyone knows
Yeah.
what we are using, but the spiritual energy, the subtle spiritual energy that is really in everything in all of life, but
Mm-hmm.
especially in humans, gets coiled in the base of the spine and then rises the more you activate your spiritual energies. And so when people talk about a Kundalini awakening, oftentimes it's in the root. You feel this like a snake rising up,
Yeah.
but this tingling or vibrations and all these kinds of energies moving through you that are not exactly physical, but you feel them physically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I did a Vipassana. Shortly the following year, I did a Vipassana. Have you heard of a Vipassana?
I have, but explain it.
Yeah, so Vipassana is a protocol of meditation. It's a 10-day, 10 hours a day meditation retreat.
Mm.
So after I had my spiritual awakening, I was literally like in God mode for a while, having all these synchronicities and manifesting things, and
Right.
totally felt one with the universe and with the cosmos. And,
And
you know,
everything was working, right?
oh yeah, it was
Everything was
all working. Yeah, I
working.
touched the Holy Grail, all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Subsequently crashed down deep into the earth, felt
Yeah.
so disconnected, depressed, isolated, confused. Everything that I thought I knew was completely gone.
Yeah.
And then I started the slow process of climbing back up the hill.
Hmm.
And in that, I met John
Hmm.
and did my first meditation retreat with him, which was this 10-day, 100-hour Vipassana. And basically, a Vipassana is when 10 hours a day, not all at once, you spread it out throughout the day, but you're in stillness meditation, supporting your own spine. No mantras, no affirmations. It's not a guided meditation. You're just sitting in stillness and observation. And the first one that I did, after about day 6, my whole body started vibrating.
Mm.
And that evening, my head was just buzzing. And that
Yeah.
didn't stop for 3 days.
Wow.
My head was just
Some
vibrating
people don't
like a bee.
survive that. I know people have gone into the multi-day meditation of silence, they call it. And some of them don't survive it. They come out. It takes them a year or two to come
Great.
back. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've
Yeah.
never done it. I saw that, so I'm not doing
Yeah, they have the warning label.
it. Exactly.
May take a
I'm
year
not
to
gonna poke
integrate.
that bear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is like poking the snake.
I know.
That's
I
what they
know.
call it, the Kundalini. At first, I was like, "Oh, this is so cool! Like I'm
Yeah.
having this
Yeah.
wild Kundalini awakening, and I'm vibrating and buzzing." And then I went to sleep, and then it woke up, and it was still going.
Mm-hmm.
And then after 2 days, I was like, "This is maybe is a problem. Like
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
this is not gonna stop." But I don't
Mhm.
know if I'm down with that. So eventually, I found somebody because it's a silent retreat. You're not supposed to be talking to people.
Right.
So I was in my own process. And eventually I just had to talk to somebody and asked, do you have any recommendations? And they helped me do some visualizations and sending the energy down into the earth, grounding barefoot.
Regrounding yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and just like redistributing the
Mhm.
energy. And eventually it stopped.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one of the things that I think was really vital and important in my awakening experience was community, was having
Mhm.
people. If you have these wild transformational experiences that totally just blast you open, but then you're just alone and you don't have anyone that's been through that or can guide you,
Yeah.
then you
Yeah.
can get a little adrift out at sea.
Yeah. And really think you're crazy. And in a way, you are crazy.
Yeah.
Crazier than normal crazy.
Yeah, well, exactly. And then you
Yeah.
get caught up thinking everyone else is crazy and they
Right.
are
Right.
crazy, but you're also crazy and we're all just
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, but there's normal crazy and there's crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. And I do know some people that it's taken them a year or two to come back from it to stabilize. And I guess they didn't have the foundation or the people there to help them. I'm not really sure. As I said, I backed right up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's
Yeah.
a
Well,
very intense meditation. It's a very come to Jesus moment, really.
it's very come to Jesus. It's
Mhm.
to come to your inner Jesus. That level of sitting with yourself, I think that most people would totally go nuts
Yeah,
after a couple days of that.
yeah, yeah.
Really, most people without any kind of meditative experience,
Mhm.
just you'd cut out all the distractions. You think about
Yeah, yeah.
today, all the distractions that we have, it's insane.
I know. And we're never with our just with ourselves for any length of time. We're reaching for the phone, we're whatever we're doing, but we'll find something to do, not to be within ourselves. Yeah, for
Yeah.
any length of time. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the whole practice.
Mhm.
And ultimately, I think that's really what we need because so much of it also is by design.
Mm,
Like it's the algorithms of all the social media things, it
right.
keeps you hooked. So it takes, in my experience, proactively going off grid or proactively,
Right.
like I will set aside one day a month that I'm
Mhm.
phone off, computer off. I'm not touching it. I'm not answering anybody. I let
Yeah.
a good friend or maybe two know that's what's happening. Anything crazy
Don't
happens,
send a
like
wellness check. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you have to. It's almost like you have to proactively combat all
Yeah.
the distractions and all the
Now you
data that's
see, I
coming our
can
way.
I can see shutting down all the electronics, but then shutting down the to-do list too. That's a hard one. Because if I'm sitting in this house and I shut down the computer and the phone, and then I start thinking, oh, but I got to fix this, but I've got to do that, or I'll just do this, or I'll do a wash, or there's something that
Yeah,
is
well,
going to come to my attention that needs to be done now.
totally,
Yeah,
and that
that would be
happens.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing that I like to do on those days is go be in nature and I'll make a list of the things. Okay, if this comes up, like, oh my God, that happens sometimes
Yeah,
in
yeah,
meditation. You're meditating and then you remember, oh, this person you didn't
yeah,
respond
yeah,
to, and if I don't write it down right now, maybe
right.
I'll forget and I won't think of it in two for two
Yeah,
weeks.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
There's
going
always
in
something
nature,
at you trying to pull you out. There's always
yeah,
something.
and it seems we're going faster and faster.
And even in nature, nature's trying to pull you out. When you start to go into that and then you start to feel the energies around you and then really start to communicate with them, that kind of pulls you out too. So it's interesting. Different
Yeah,
way though, different way.
yeah, oh yeah. I think
Mhm.
it's that is the more our natural speed.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder, like 200 years ago, what were people like?
Yeah, a lot
Yeah.
more calm, I think.
Yeah. I can't even imagine what they would be like.
I think one of the biggest things is we are really losing touch with our ancestral legacy of
Mhm.
connection with the earth,
Oh, yeah.
farming,
Yeah.
food. It was 200 years ago, 1824. Most people had a farm. Most people were growing food.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think we
Yeah.
had grocery stores.
Yeah, I think
And
we had merchandise supply stores, but they
yeah,
weren't for food.
It wasn't the
for,
mass thing.
yeah,
You can go to the grocery
it
store
was,
now and get
yeah.
anything, any time of year.
I know, it's pretty amazing. For a little while there, through the 90s with the high anxiety, that what we considered then to be high anxiety, we didn't know what it was going to become.
What
But,
was
you know,
coming?
I know. But
We have lost it. We have
yeah.
phones that we're carrying around all the
I
time.
know, who knew? Yeah. But I used to think that we were in anxiety because our bodies knew that we didn't know where the food was, that we didn't know where the food was coming from. It's like the car didn't know where the gas was. You know?
Yeah.
Our bodies didn't know where the food was. So there
Yeah.
was anxiety in the body because we didn't know where the food was. We
Yeah. Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
know where it came from or how it got there. We didn't know where our food was
Yeah.
because we had gone from growing it to it being in a package in a supermarket with
Yeah.
no emotional or energetic connection, really.
Yeah.
But that's off. That was before anxiety really took off.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those exponential graphs.
Yeah,
You thought you're like, oh, wow, this is too
yeah,
much. But
yeah.
then
I
in
know. So my
hindsight, where we are
theory is
now.
way beyond that now. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's cool to see and especially with how that's impacting young people and young people as they
Hmm.
grow up
Right.
and parents and kids and screens
Oh my God,
and
yeah.
it's just this wild thing. But I do see and am very hopeful that the curve is going to push us in the back in a more holistic direction because there is such an awareness of the damage of all these constant screens and devices and social
Hmm.
medias and everything. I think we're going to go at not all of society, but there's a tipping point of enough people realizing like, oh, this is actually really not healthy.
I
So
hope so, but I can only hope. But let me ask this. What does your astrology say?
yeah,
Because the astrology, and this I said before we came on, I said, I want to ask this question. What is going on in astrology? The last few weeks have been intense, but it could be like the 90s right before it gets worse. I know.
absolutely.
Hmm.
All right. There's
Now,
this is
let
a
me
big,
ask you too, how'd you get into astrology?
yeah. Let's
Because
back up
you're,
there.
yeah.
So I started with the spiritual awakening. I started meditation was one of the most useful tools. I started studying with John. He became a personal
John
mentor.
Oliver. Yeah.
Yeah, John Oliver, John J.
Mhm.
Oliver, TV psychic.
Okay.
And he started teaching me both
Mm.
tarot cards, and astrology.
Yeah.
And those became my amazing best friend spiritual tools for helping me understand my place, myself, making decisions. And
Hmm.
then I started working in a metaphysical shop that he owned, the Aquarian in Richmond,
Hmm.
Virginia.
I've
Actually, I
heard
started
of
in
it. Yeah.
Charlottesville. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was around psychics and we put on these huge, biggest in Virginia psychic festivals. And
Hmm.
so I was just around all these really cool spiritual
Yeah.
psychic people. And that's how I just got swept up in that current and then started doing sessions and then teaching classes. And it
Hmm.
just evolved over the
Right.
years.
Right. And he's a great astrologer, John.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
really is
yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And
So,
many people
he's
don't
a
know
great one to
him.
learn with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Many people
I
don't know
agree.
him as an astrologer.
Yeah.
It is just one of his passions.
No, yeah, that
Um,
was almost his first passion. The information coming at him that he started working with the police and all of that. That to him was a little side gig almost. On his passion, he loved astrology.
Yeah, and I'll say anybody that has gone down the astrology rabbit hole,
But
it once it grabs you. And you just still to this day, I'm obsessed. Like
right.
it
See,
is
now I've
amazing.
never gone down there. It's too complex for me and it takes too much time and energy and work. So
Yeah.
I'm always grabbing people like you saying, what is going on?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting because I teach both tarot and astrology
Hmm.
in courses, and the attrition rate with astrology is a bit
Yeah.
higher than tarot because
Oh, yeah.
tarot, it's honestly, people, you can read tarot really quickly if you can just
Hmm.
interpret pictures and symbols. Like
Right.
there's an amazing system of numerology that's connected with the Kabbalah, that's connected with astrology, and it's like really intricate. But you honestly don't need to know all of that to just use the cards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Astrology, on the other hand, there is a barrier to entry. You can
This is
learn
a
enough to say
scientific
things.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
really.
and the way that I like to explain it, it's learning a foreign language. No,
That's a
it's
good way to, yeah.
you
And
can you
I
can
failed all foreign languages. I did.
well
Some
the
people
thing,
have it and some people don't.
yeah, but it's the thing, like you really have to want to learn it because you
Yeah.
must keep practicing. It's not the kind of
Mhm.
thing that you go to a weekend workshop and you got it.
Right.
It takes years of practice.
But you said it right at the beginning. It has to grab you. That
Mhm.
desire, that curiosity has to be there. So you keep coming back to it and keep coming back to it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that never grabbed me.
Yeah,
That
it's
I'm fascinated by it. I understand the power of it and
mhm,
the truth and the honesty in it and the science of it. I
mhm.
understand that's all there, but it never grabbed me to learn it, to really study it, to learn it. So I
Yeah.
so I have to come to you and say, what's going on?
Different strokes for different folks.
Yeah. So I'm glad you're out there. I'm glad other people love astrology.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and the way I also like to think about it too is that there's a lot of non-believers as well in
Mm.
terms of astrology. And I say a similar thing. If people try and argue with me or want to debate so much about astrology, what I will say is it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I don't need to convince you that astrology works because billions of people do believe that astrology works and they
Not
want
only
to know.
that, for thousands of years. This didn't just come up in the New Age time. This is a very old science.
Oh, yeah. Every
Yeah.
civilization, basically in history, has had some form of astrology.
And the things they've come up with explain how else they did that. If it weren't astrology, how did they know that? Or were they able to get to that information?
Oh, yeah.
And it is fascinating.
That's what keeps pulling me with it. It just is so accurate, and it just continues to amaze. Like it continues to it always works.
Nick,
Astrology always works. There can be faulty interpretations or
yeah.
astrologers misinterpreting things, but the
Mhm.
astrology always works.
And including, and I've had people do this for me to say, am I living in the right place? Should I live somewhere else?
Mm.
Including that, the amount that astrology can do. It's not just predicting the future, predicting what's going on now, what energies are working, but it really can take a look at, are you in the right place? Are you doing the right thing? Are you with
Oh,
the right people?
yeah, yeah. Its applications are
It is.
it's so multidimensional.
Yeah.
One of the things that is not as popular, let's say, or as talked about because the signs and people want to know the big three, and
Yeah. Yeah.
everyone's obsessed now with Mercury retrograde. And now Mercury's
And if,
retrograde currently.
yeah.
But one of the things that I personally use astrology the most for is actually timing. There's a branch of astrology called electional astrology, and that refers not to political elections,
Mhm.
but electing specific times to do things. Because everything has a birth chart. You and I have
Yeah.
birth charts, but also a
Yeah.
business has a birth chart, a house has a birth chart, a country has a birth chart, a
Mhm.
relationship has a birth chart. And so once astrology, you can proactively initiate things at specific times
Mm.
for desired results because when you meet someone for the first time, you will never meet again for the first time in this lifetime, right?
That's true.
Or same thing with a business. Like you will
Yeah.
never, it always has that. And the astrology tells so much about the future of how things are going to unfold.
There are a lot of businesses, they don't advertise it, but they will have astrologers work with them on product development and when do we launch? When do we launch? Where do we launch? And they'll get into colors and everything. It
Oh yeah,
really
and
is
feng
quite
shui,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah. And not a peep out of them that they're using this, not a word.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes, and it gets passed around about who actually said it or came up with it, but the popular thought is that it came from John D. Rockefeller, I
Mm.
believe. And it's that millionaires don't use astrologers, but billionaires do.
Wow.
And that just
Yeah.
tells you everything right there.
Yeah. And especially if it does come from him. But Ronald Reagan or his wife used it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, used astrology.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
but she never
astrology was.
came out and said anything more about that. Oh, that only that tidbit came out. And I've never heard anything else about it.
And there's politicians these days that are using astrologers. They're probably not going to tell you about it, but they
Right.
certainly are.
Nobody says a word about it. And they don't even talk about consultants. When they have consultants, they don't talk about them either. It's very odd that everybody like, yeah, I'm out here on my own, just winging it. No. You've got a whole team of
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got
Yeah,
all your people planted around. Yeah. So what's
that's right.
astrology telling us right now?
Cool. So there's the short term, there's the middle term, and the long term.
Mm,
What's happening right now and what has been happening for the past week and a half
mhm,
has been this great alignment of a few planets.
mhm.
And one
I've
of the
got to say, it's August 25th, is
That's
it?
right.
2024. Because this will be out there in 3 years, and you're saying right now.
That's right.
Okay, sorry about that.
And so there's some technical terms that I could use to describe what's happening right now, but then many people that
Mhm,
don't know astrology will say, okay, that just goes right through my head. But a technical term, you could use a T-square
mhm.
of planets in mutable signs. However, for most people, I didn't hear anything you just said. So
I have to
basically,
say that's me too. I
right.
didn't get any of that. I don't understand it. Yeah.
That's one of the things I really like to do in astrology is make it much more accessible to people
And
that
I
don't
appreciate
speak
that. Yeah.
astrologies.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
So basically, let's back up. Do you
Mhm.
remember in December of 2020 something called the Great Conjunction?
Here's what I
So there
know in
was
2020. In
yeah.
December, I'm a psychic. In December,
Mhm.
I knew that the old vibration and the new vibration slammed into each
Mm.
other. And it was a big blow up, but it not only here, through all the universes. And it was as if, so I'm in Colorado, it's as if I went up to the divide, put one foot on the other side, just got one foot into the new vibration. Where we had spent 50 years coming up to it,
Mhm.
it came together. And that's what
Mm.
I do know. And I know astrology there. That was a psychic hit of boom. Oh, it just came together.
Let's
So
weave some astrologies into this
yeah.
book.
Yeah.
There was the Great Conjunction, which was the planets Jupiter and Saturn coming
Mhm.
exactly together in the sky. It was a huge spectacle. All the news covered it. It was on December 21st of 2020. And they were also referring to it as the Star of Bethlehem, the star that Jesus was born under. But it was Jupiter and Saturn came so close together,
Mhm.
and it was this huge spectacle. So that's referred to as the Great Conjunction.
Mhm.
They come together, they meet each other in the zodiac every 20 years.
Mhm.
Now, it's interesting that what you brought up about the old and the new coming together, because that can be a way of describing those two energies. Saturn can represent the old and Jupiter can represent the new. But Saturn really is the principle of contraction and limitation, and Jupiter is the energy of growth and expansion and freedom.
Mhm.
They came together in Aquarius, the very beginning of the sign of Aquarius. And this marked this major new beginning of a 20-year cycle. However, it also marked the beginning of Jupiter and Saturn meeting in air signs. Aquarius is an air sign.
Mhm.
So this began their meeting in air signs for the next 200 years. So it began a 20-year cycle and a 200-year cycle.
Mhm.
And this conjunction is referred to as an important marker of long cycles. If we go back in time before we had like these really accurate keep keepers of time, like the exact time, whatever is the Greenwich Mean
Yeah.
Time and all this. Jupiter and Saturn were the two furthest out planets. Saturn was the farthest out planet that we could see. Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto came along later once we had telescopes.
Mm-hmm.
Their cycles together, that 20 years was the longest cycle, the planetary cycle. It was the long track.
Yeah.
And every 20 years, they come together and give us indications about these longer cycles of time, 20 years. Them coming together at the very beginning of Aquarius marked this burst forward in the energy of the sign of Aquarius, which is the Aquarian age that all these spiritual people have been talking about, and Abba.
That we've been coming to for 50 years. Yeah,
and so it was this like new beginning that happened there. Then it wasn't long after that that Pluto, it was a few years later, Pluto entered Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
And that Pluto had been in the previous sign since 2008. And then I think it was in 2022, and then really it stepped in 2023, that Pluto entered into Aquarius, the same place where Jupiter and Saturn met. And it's just like this ushering in of the Aquarian ideals, which are humanitarianism, the collective rather than the individual, themes like technology, innovation, invention, the future. It's all correlated with this huge burst in AI, Pluto going into Aquarius.
Yeah.
Where we are now is a quarter of the way to the next great conjunction. Right now, Jupiter and Saturn are exactly 90 degrees apart. You can think about it like the easiest way is new moon to full moon. If the great conjunction was the new moon, right now we're halfway to the full moon. We're a quarter of the way there. And so this is in the collective, in all of our personal lives, this is a crunch point. This is an inflection point. Long-term goals, long-term intentions, bigger picture manifestations. Right now, we're at this, are we going this direction or are we going this direction?
Yeah, yeah.
Things that were seeded or put into place at the end of 2020 and the first, let's say, 3/4 of 2021, which was a very crunchy time in humanity.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Now we're at this major inflection point. Okay, are we going this way? What needs to be changed? It's a deciding time. It's an action time. We are going this way or we're not going that way.
Now, do half of us want to go this way and half of us want to go that way? And we're all fully entrenched in our direction. Why is that?
Yeah, why is there such a division and a splitting?
Yeah. And chaos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think part of it is what you brought up about the divide or the energy that you felt at the end of 20, which was the old meeting the new.
Yeah.
And you have this pressure of paradigms that are meeting each other in great contrast. And the new paradigm is somehow going to be a synthesis. It's not fully the old and it's not fully this extreme new. Like we're not just going to suddenly leave the past behind just like that mass ascend like the Mayas and I don't really believe that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So there's this tug of war that's happening. And so and part of that you can see is the Jupiter Saturn. It's called a square, or their relationship. The relationship is like a grain of sand in the shell of an oyster that eventually, or a clam that makes a pearl eventually, but it's through friction and frustration and it's so annoying.
It's rough getting to that smooth pearl.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is the friction that this creates. But what it does create is something new. It does birth something new. And so of late, we've also had the planets Mars and Venus cross and activate that Jupiter-Saturn dynamic. And that's what's just set it all off, and it's just been all over the map. And it's just, especially anybody that's got really strong Virgo, Pisces, Sagittarius, or Gemini energies, they have been getting lit up the 4th of July for the past few weeks.
So why them? They're the air
Why?
sign? Yeah.
Yeah, because that's where all of these planets are. Saturn is in Pisces right now.
Right.
Jupiter is in Gemini. Mars is in Gemini. Venus is in Virgo. And it wasn't too long ago that we also had the moon in Sagittarius. And that's creating this perfect cross. And now it's more of a T square. It looks like a T in the
Right.
sky.
So if astrology is pushing us one way, pushing us forward to go one way, what is
Which
that
way?
way?
Yeah, it's the way of Pluto and Aquarius.
Mhm.
So there's two big things that are unfolding, taking us into the future. One is Pluto and Aquarius, which Pluto is the urge of transformation and rebirth. It's the underworld. It's the death and metamorphosis cycle. But wherever Pluto is, it's like the unconscious of society gets dealt with, right? The 2008 to 2022, 23, it was in Capricorn. And that was when we had this huge collapse of the banks, huge restructuring of the economy, real estate.
Right.
Capricorn is all these tangible business, corporations, money, all of those things. Now it's in Aquarius, which is in the sign of technology, the future, innovation. So one of the biggest things that we're being tipped into is AI, our digital selves, like our discussion about distractions and social media and all this stuff. Like I do believe that there's a movement that is bringing a balance of that, but it is not without like more of us living and focusing our awareness in digital spaces. And whether that's virtual reality, AI things, like even now, you and I are doing this podcast on Zoom.
Right.
Like
about an hour before I got on with you, I was saying to somebody, "Where's my robot? I need my robot."
That's coming. That's for
Well, I
sure
better
coming.
hurry.
Yeah. Listen, making food,
Yeah.
literally making clothes, videos, music, all these things
Right.
created artificially, created by digital means, created by robots, etc. That's all coming. We
Right.
are going in that direction.
A lot of those things are already here, making the music. I can now be a songwriter and actually come out with a whole song with music and voice and everything, where
That's
I
insane.
myself don't have the talent for any of that. But
Yeah.
online I can do that. With AI, I can do that. And this
And
is the beginning.
oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Here's the interesting thing. Pluto is at the very beginning of Aquarius. This will be very interesting. Pluto is actually for many months going to dip back into Capricorn.
Oh, what does that mean? That makes me nervous just hearing that, and I don't understand it at all.
Yeah, it's another little taste of the past, let's say. Capricorn is the tradition, which is not all bad, like ancient wisdom practices are part of that. But it's also one form can be the patriarchal structure.
God, half our population wants to go backwards, and the other half wants to go forward. It sounds very simple, and I think it is that simple. Yeah. But that's what we have going on in the United States right now, it seems to me.
Yeah, and it seems, here's what I would say. It seems that it's half and half, but I would say that it's not just two. It's very easy. The powers that be, etc., love the divide and conquer game and would love it to be that simple. Yeah. But I think there is more than just those two dynamics or perspectives in terms of other people out there that are like, this is the best. It's not this, but I definitely don't want that. So I'm going to do this.
Take a piece of this and a piece of that and put it together.
Yeah. But anyways, so as far as Capricorn, speaking of politics, in the past couple years, when Pluto has been at 29 degrees of Capricorn, there have been several huge international issues with patriarchal figures getting in trouble, actually. And the three big ones that I've paid attention to have been Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, and Benjamin Netanyahu. If you look back with Pluto being at 29 Capricorn, all three of those men got in big issues with courts or with the law or major issues there in terms of their power or reputation, let's say, came into big question or et cetera, while Pluto is at 29 Capricorn. So that's one of the things that I think.
And is it at 29 Capricorn? You said it's going to dip back
It
to
will be
that?
literally in a few days.
Oh, a few days. We can't even
Pluto, I
get
can
over
tell you
that.
exactly on September, it looks like September 2nd, Pluto goes back into Capricorn
Ooh.
for a couple months. And then by the time we get back into late November, Pluto's back in Aquarius. So it's only for a few months.
It's hard. It's been a hard few months already,
Yeah.
so going into some more hard months.
Yeah.
How are
Yeah.
people doing with all
Well, and there's so many, this discussion of what's happening right now astrologically this is a full weekend of discussion.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to give the highlights.
Uh-huh.
But bigger picture moving forward, then Pluto goes back into Aquarius, and for the next 18, approximately 20 years, Pluto's in Aquarius, and this is just this launch of humanity and the collective into two big things. One, this big focus in technology, AI, innovation, and science. Unbelievable renaissance in science and in medicine, for sure, that we are already seeing and is going to explode. But the other thing about Aquarius is it's about community and it's about the collective. So I think this hyper individualism and isolation that we've been seeing, creating depression and suicide and loneliness and young people and everybody of loneliness. I think Pluto going back into Aquarius is pushing the collective back into realizing like, oh, maybe I do need other people. Maybe I do need to spend time with friends and community and people. And so there's a tipping back into the direction of the importance of community.
Good. I think that's a big loss.
It's one of our core things that makes us, we are social creatures.
And we
We're
get
pretending
crazy
that we're
when
not.
we're on our own for any length of time. We start getting weird thoughts.
The pandemic totally taught us that. If one thing,
Right.
it totally was like, oh, no, we need each other.
What was the astrology in the pandemic? What was that?
Yes, indeed. This is very fascinating. If astrologers were talking about 2020 for decades, they were talking, what's going to happen in 2020? What is going to happen in 2020? There's a few folks that I do know that actually did predict a pandemic, but I would say 97% of the astrologers.
I only knew of one, and she was in Australia.
Yeah, it was not.
That was it. Yeah.
97% of the astrologers were saying something like this. There's going to be an economic collapse. Something is going to shift and happen with the government, world government, the banks, currency, finance, and all that. And we did see this huge, tremendous, the biggest shift of wealth that we've ever seen. But astrologically, this huge gathering of planets in Capricorn happened. And it was Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. They all came together in the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn, again, we were talking about earlier, business, corporations, the structure of government, the powers that be, big banks, all those things. And so there was this alignment of some big heavy hitters astrologically. And astrologers had this like binoculars on it for decades. Oh, something is going to happen there.
Yeah.
And so,
they're the ones who bought the toilet paper and the coffee. What are you going to leave the house for? Toilet paper and coffee.
Well, what I like to tell folks, if you went shopping at the grocery store at that time in 2020, and you saw what people's grocery, like shopping carts, then you understand why everyone was freaking out about the toilet paper, because my God, were people filling up their carts with food. So you see why toilet paper was a big issue.
Yep. You can get by with a lot of things, but toilet paper. I know.
So that was the pandemic. Now, glimpsing into the future a little bit, you asked about what's coming up. there's another huge this one I don't have. I'm still going to be thinking about it as the months go on, and we'll really start to tip into like astrology. This is what we're talking about. Astrologers will be talking about this and talking about this, like the big eclipse that we just had.
Right.
And so in 2025,
Mhm.
and we're feeling the effects of it now, but it's not until 2025, the spring of 25, that two planets are aligning, and that is Saturn and Neptune.
Mm. I don't like Saturn already. Okay.
Yeah. So here's what's and they're what's extremely significant is where they're aligning. They're aligning at the very beginning of Aries. I'll come to that. But it's considered a world point. They're aligning at a place in the cosmos that is considered to have a huge implications for all of society, the world, humanity. It's affecting all of us in a big way, in a big paradigm shifting kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just to set the minor thing.
Right.
Key change. Okay.
This is nerve-wracking here.
Yeah. Saturn represents structure. Saturn, again, is the boundary. It's the limitations. It is another way that we can think about it. It is the physical, tangible reality. Saturn represents the house, the walls of the house. In us, it's our skeleton. It's our bones. It's the thing that is the hard, solid thing at the end of the day.
It's a foundation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's Saturn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Neptune is the opposite. Neptune is ethereal. Neptune is non-solid. Neptune is psychic experiences. Neptune is the merging with source. Neptune is the imagination. Neptune is the cosmic ocean and oneness, and nothing solid. Saturn is everything solid, and Neptune is. And so there's an interesting quote that gets passed around that I love by Robert Hand, who's an amazing, famous astrologer, who said, we used to think that Saturn was reality and Neptune was something like this. It was
consciousness or...
Yeah, or was imagination, what was made up, right? Mm-hmm. Now we realize that Neptune is reality, the spiritual, and Saturn, the physical, is actually imagination and is not real. Mm. Anyways, it's just a funny Saturn-Neptune kind of thing.
Yeah.
But basically, so you have these two energies colliding. Saturn, what is real in the physical, tangible, and Neptune dissolving, imaginary, nebulous, right? Mm-hmm. And so that is bringing us, and it's really strong at 25 and 26. 25, it starts, and 26 is the big shifting, changing things. I predict that 2026 is going to be another 2020 kind of year.
Oh, geez.
And not necessarily in terms of pandemic, but it's another big humanity inflection point. What are we doing here? Where is this going? Is anyone driving the boat? What's happening?
Yeah.
And it's this of what is reality. Saturn is the physical, tangible reality, and Neptune is the ethereal, spiritual, cosmic reality. Mm-hmm. And so we're starting to get glimpses of it with these audio, visual, video, music deep fakes, and like people can make a little avatar of you. AI can generate your voice. They can call people, and and that confuses us about, well, what is real?
Yeah, yeah. We're already there. Yeah.
But we're not. We're just at the beginning of that.
Oh, yeah. No, but I can see that because we're already seeing videos that aren't real. But we're so used to what we see is real that we're having a little trouble adjusting to this.
Exactly.
A lot of trouble adjusting. In fact, it's going to be tough. We're going to go to nothing is real before maybe we can figure out what isn't. That's what I'm assuming.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm hoping we can figure out what isn't.
Yeah. It will not be easy. That's for sure.
Right.
And just like you're saying, there will definitely be a phase of people there's an adoption phase of people figuring out, like, how can I trust anything? What can I trust is real?
Yeah. We can't trust what we hear, what we say, what we're told. We're already deep into that.
Who's
Yeah,
on the other side of the phone?
I know. It sounds like you, it looks like you. Everything should be you, but I have to ask you a question that only you would know.
Yep, that's how get yourself a safe word or whatever.
Right. No, actually, I was just with my family, my extended family, on the beach, and we actually came up with one that
Yeah,
we
I
told each other and said, okay, this will be the question, and we know the answer. And you can't look it up on the internet.
yes, yeah, no,
Yeah.
I really recommend everyone do that
Because
because
they
the
can take your visual and your voice and have it say or do anything. That's the terrifying part, really. But let
yes.
me ask you this straight out. What
Mhm.
do you think? So this is what all the planets are doing. What do you think's going to happen
Mm.
in on down here on Earth at the dirt level? What do you think is going to happen next spring?
Couple things. One, the boundaries of what we thought was real or what we thought our limitations were is going to be broken. And I think part of that is actually going into space, whether it's colonizing Mars or setting things up on the moon or traveling further than we've ever been or the regular like being in space like our version of reality this the boundary of where we exist, Saturn, with a
Yeah.
few astronauts out there,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
like if,
Who can't get home.
currently who
Yeah.
are having some serious Mercury retrograde
Right.
issues,
Yeah.
that is going to be broken. Our concept of where we exist as humans, that is going to change. That's
Okay.
one thing.
Do you think that's an ET as well? Beings or just don't know?
It's, I would say yes, but I think people have been predicting contact for
Forever, yeah.
God only knows
Yeah.
how long, and we're still waiting or whatever. So, like, in
Yeah.
terms of the mass consciousness, like, I think so. It keeps being pushed back and delayed year after year, decade
Yeah,
after
I know,
decade.
I
So,
know.
it's hard to put that one out there. But
Right.
I would say, yeah, very good chance. Androids, in terms of like robots, you said. Now
Yeah.
we have Instacart and people that before you had to grow your food in your
Yeah.
backyard or your farm, or
Yeah.
you had to know your farmer,
Mhm.
and get your food. Then we started going to grocery stores. But then, very recently, suddenly you just click a few buttons on your phone and food shows up at your doorstep.
Yeah.
It's not going to be long before people have little Android shoppers that are
Yeah.
just your personal. Go out into the world. Go make some copies of go print these things. Go do these tasks. I
Like
think,
a 3D printer, go make a cup for me because I just broke mine.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They're making homes and
Faster
stuff.
than they're doing now.
Androids, I really believe, are going to become more ubiquitous, and how
Mhm.
that shakes up pretty soon. We're not going to be able to distinguish, are you a human or are you an android?
Wow. Now talk about not knowing what's real. Yeah.
Will it become rude to ask?
Yeah, I know.
You know?
Can I touch you?
Yeah. Can I
Yeah.
see? Do you have a manufacturer's warranty? Do you have a tag
Yeah,
somewhere?
yeah. Yeah. Oh my.
And that has all kinds of implications for all kinds of facets of life,
Yeah.
you know? So that's a huge one.
Mm.
Then I do believe very much the pushing into a digital currency and the kind of ubiquitousness of cash, which I very much am against and think we should try and keep using cash and real tangible currency as long as possible.
Right.
I do think it's going in that direction. And so it's all of these bigger picture things of really making us contemplate what is real, like the holograms. Like now we're meeting on Zoom. It's very soon where you and I are talking and it seems like we're actually really in front of each other, but we're not.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
But then the question is, but are we in front of each other?
Yeah.
It,
And will it
it,
take away that need? Because right now, Zoom does not take away the need or whatever it gives us to actually sit in front of each other and have a cup of coffee together. There's something else that Zoom doesn't do.
there's the smell, there's the touch,
I
there's
guess that's it. Yeah, I didn't really think it that deep.
yeah, but
Yeah.
then the question is, will the technology become so advanced that
Yeah.
you can actually feel like you're touching somebody that's not
Mhm.
actually there?
Yeah. How are we going to survive mentally? sanity-wise. Or are we?
Yeah.
So we'll know humans by they're the ones drooling and babbling in the corner.
They're the ones that stink.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
robots, they should not build in body into the
Really?
algorithm.
I know.
Right?
Wow. Yeah. So what else do you see?
Yeah. The way we interact. Couple, okay, a few more other things. Back to medicine and science. Medicine, we are in the midst of and about to see an unbelievable renaissance in medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And the implications of that for health and longevity are
Yeah.
insane. Now it's people living to 100, it's amazing, bravo, wow, you're doing it, right?
I almost feel like saying, I'm sorry, because the
Yeah,
body's not doing so good.
but it's we are not far away, and in fact,
I know.
it's happening now. It's just not in the mass consciousness of like reversing aging
Right.
or just slowing down that metabolic or aging process so that people are living longer, healthier, healing from things. So like our health
Catching
and our
everything early. Knowing immediate. Oh, something's off. Yeah.
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 And what they're doing with genetics in terms
Yeah.
of gene editing, it's scary. It's exciting for its good purposes. It's scary for its bad purposes.
Right.
Like all of these
Yeah.
technologies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's using them and why? So that's a big one. That
Mhm.
will shift. There's this mass issue and problem right now in the world with fertility. And then all these countries that are not populating as much as which probably, in my opinion, is not such a bad thing. We don't have the sustainability and infrastructure in place for as many people as we do.
But then we're going to space.
Yeah, so let's trash
Yeah.
this planet. Let's go
Yeah.
find another one.
All the rich people are going there. They're in a mad dash to get out of here. And that's another worry. How
Yeah.
come you people are all trying to run away?
Or building their crazy underground bunkers,
Oh my God. And they've got
which they're doing.
underground bunkers that are so much bigger than our houses and more complex.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I know.
So, yeah, so health, science, yeah, health and longevity is one of these big things that we cannot underestimate how much that will shake up
Right.
society. Science,
Mhm.
so there's a couple different things, and I'm not entirely sure how it's going to go with. So, like we've seen since the pandemic, this huge burst in enthusiasm and interest in spiritual things.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen it. I think social media, the pandemic, just suddenly everyone's at home and suddenly everyone's on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And oh my gosh, now everyone's into astrology and tarot and
Yeah.
crystals and meditation and things like that,
Right.
which is wonderful.
Mercury retrograde has become the normal thing in the mainstream at this point.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, it's really amazing.
Yeah, there's a couple ways that this can go because, as I mentioned, Neptune can very much represent the spiritual things. Saturn can represent a limitation on those things. And so I would say there's a good chance that there can be some more pushback on this like huge, just like flooding into life and into young people and into society of all these new age, for lack of a better umbrella.
Yeah.
And so they're from some of the more traditional orthodoxies or religions or sciences, a bit of, whoa, wait a second. Why does everyone believe in astrology now?
Yeah.
You know?
But we do have quantum physics coming out and saying consciousness is everywhere.
Yes.
Consciousness is in everything. So it's going into the sciences.
Which is what I think is like a double edge. It'll be both happening at the same time, which is where spirituality and science start to catch up with spirituality, which is what these
But the
indigenous
religions are going to be
yeah, so it's going to be both. I think
Yeah.
it's going to be both at the same time. Pushback and this interweaving of sciences. Oh yeah, you guys were right this whole time. We can prove it now though, so we're satisfied.
Yeah. Yeah. Should be with the organized religions, the need for control and money, that breaking down is going to be a huge thing because people lose community with it too. wrong or whatever. It has been a tremendous community that has broken down over the past 40, 50 years. And the loss of community, I think, has made us all a little crazy.
Absolutely. And I think to the credit of organized religion, that community is so important. And it has
Yeah.
been for all these millennia or however many years,
Hmm.
holding that space.
Right.
And I don't think that it's
The New Age doesn't give it that space. There's not the community. We'll
not the
talk about the spiritual community, but there's no gathering. Do you know what I mean?
not in the same, because
Yeah.
before in countries where like this is the religion that you do or you're killed or whatever, it does bring people together.
Back 50 years in this country, and the Catholic Church had mass every weekend. Oh, they probably still do, but there was a gathering point. And now with spirituality, there really isn't, we're all taking classes, but there's no gathering point. There's no
Yeah, that's
community.
the big one. It's okay, we collectively maybe believe some of the same things, but we're not gathering under that banner necessarily,
Yeah, yeah.
you
So the
know?
community's not really there in the depth that we need.
Yeah,
Human.
and I think that's part of the
Yeah.
draw of like in the pandemic, these huge protests that we were
Hmm.
seeing, like part of the draw of that, it was just like being in community.
Yeah.
It's like you feel united for some cause and something, and you're together with people.
Belonging to something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Belonging. Yeah.
So I think that the organized religions, I don't think they're going away,
Hmm.
but I do think they will have to evolve, and then they work for some people, many people, but what I hope in my prayer and what I do see as like in some way it's going to unfold is community becoming a bigger thing, gathering together, because that is our birthright. That is our ancestral, it's in our DNA.
We have to have it. We need it. Yeah.
Eventually, we're going
Yeah.
to come back to that. Hopefully, it doesn't take an apocalypse
That's what
to
I'm
make us.
hoping. I'm hoping it's in 2025. Yeah. But, and I am hoping with you that it's not going to take a devastation to do it, really, because in the past, sometimes that is what it took.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you think that's going to be what it takes? I got you here. I got you for
Yeah,
it.
put me on the spot. I
Yeah.
definitely do not want to predict apocalypse. I don't want
Yeah.
to do that.
Hmm.
However, um, the psychic pressure that is building
Hmm.
and has been building, the division that we're talking about, the unrest, the
Right.
inequity, the economic, like the with what's happening with the planet, and something's going to pop. I really
Right.
do think how it shakes out, not entirely clear on, but I would say 2025, 2026 especially, something to the scale of that pandemic that we had and how it just totally disrupted for
Everything.
most of
Yeah.
people on the earth life.
Hmm.
I think something like that is, unless we shift things, it's coming. Now, does it? So I don't want people to then suddenly be all afraid and brace for impact, but at the same time, like it is useful to be prepared. What I really believe in
Hmm.
terms of these like end of the world and apocalypse and
Yeah.
is regardless of whether it happens in that such a dramatic way or civil war or some crazy stuff,
Yeah.
it
Something.
is
Yeah.
useful to
Paired.
be prepared. Where are you going to get your water? Where are you going to get your food when the grocery store
Hmm.
shut down? Like, where
Yeah.
are you going to, how are you going to? One of the big things that I think is important to really think about is AI and it making many jobs obsolete.
Yeah. I know.
Really, that's a big
Hmm.
thing. It's already totally upending many industries.
Hmm.
So, what does that look like 3 years from now, five
I
years from
know.
now?
I
So,
know.
continuing to develop our skills and evolving, I think staying stuck in the past and pretending like it's not happening is not the way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going on with or without you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And then what I do know is that with the pandemic, it was a really beautiful glimpse. There's terrible things that happened for sure,
Hmm.
but it was also a glimpse into it was like a fire drill. When things really shake up, how you handle it, how do you adapt?
Hmm.
And so I think with all of us, our ability to adapt with changing circumstances
Right.
and not holding on to the way it's always been, the way you've always done your job, the way you've always gotten your money, the way where you've lived, how you
Hmm.
met in community, or our ability to adapt.
Yeah.
Those that can adapt will be fine.
Human nature has survived because we're so adaptable.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, we can live on stone soup. I mean, like, it's happened.
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah, I
know.
think humans will be around.
Yeah. Just how many of them?
Yeah, that's addition.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How have
That's
you prepared? Are you a prepper?
I don't know. I think the pandemic, and so I'm much more stocked in terms of like food and water than I
Mhm.
was before the pandemic.
Yeah.
I certainly know people with land that in the back of my mind, I'm like, if everything goes crazy, then yeah, maybe I will. Oh,
Here's the other thing. It may be more dangerous. May be more in danger if you have things. It might work in a reverse manner that it's,
yeah,
oh, you're not in better shape. You're actually in worse shape.
yeah. You
Yeah.
may be the envy of your neighbors.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
Yeah, I think it's the kind of thing for us to be watchful and
Hmm.
prepared, but not paranoid
Yeah.
and obsessed. Like we're all pretty much in the same boat,
Hmm.
generally speaking. And I do believe that fundamentally,
98% of us anyway.
yeah, I do believe in the goodness of human nature at its core, like in crisis. I do think when you look
The
at natural
kindness comes
disasters and
out. Yeah.
earthquakes, crazy things like yeah, there's selfish people and there's people that go for themselves, but the majority of people want to help and want to
Hmm.
get through this together.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you
So,
think we'll all survive by 2026?
oh, definitely not all of us. But yeah, I think it's really hard because in the same way with 2020,
Hmm.
I don't think it's set. I don't
Yeah.
think the
That's the
path is
other thing I wanted to ask you. Can it change?
I
Is
do
it
believe
set in stone or can it change?
yeah, here's the my perspective in terms of the multiverse or in
Hmm.
terms of probable realities and different timelines and you can get into different dimensions and all parallel
But
timelines.
yeah.
You can get into a whole deep discussion about it. But I believe that each of us have free will.
Hmm.
Most of us are really not using it,
Yeah.
but we do have it. It's there. But in the same way that we all have astrology charts, how you manifest your chart, like how that unfolds, is to a great deal up to you. Like the reason I'm bringing this up is because there's the quintessential astrology thing of when you have two people that have the exact same chart, but they're living totally different lives. How do
Hmm.
you equate for that? One is circumstance in terms of the family that you're born into, the what you're given at birth, the opportunities, the economy, all of that. The other big thing is karma, okay, the momentum that you're bringing in from other lifetimes.
Uh-huh.
But then there's free will and how you rise to the occasion, which is impacted by all these other things. And so when it comes to the collective and like where the future is going for all of us, I do believe that a tipping point can be reached where we don't have to go through such a hard landing to
Hmm.
get to our collective evolution, a consciousness raising and finding more of a homeostasis with the earth and with each other. Is that the momentum that we're on right now? Just it's insane. If you look at the division in our country right now, it's like, how is this possible? So,
And everybody's entrenched, and it's not they're entrenched because I'm going to hang on to this and not. People truly believe the trench they're in. Yeah, people truly believe it. It's
mhm.
not just I'm being stubborn. It's not that. It's truly a belief.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, which is more frightening in my mind.
yeah. And there's a metaphysical principle that I do believe, which came from Jerome, which is that whoever holds the strongest vision or version of reality,
Hmm.
others ultimately have to either match that or leave. It's the same thing in like a board meeting, or you get a group of people.
Yeah,
Whoever is
right.
holding it's gonna go this way. You're
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
family. Mom is typically mom is no, this is what's happening.
Yeah, but then again, a lot of times it comes down to vote. You
Mhm,
have so many people there, and it's coming down to vote, unless you consensus. And I've been in those situations where it comes down to the worst possible spot. If one person can veto what everybody else wants, and you got to go with the veto,
mhm.
consensus, and
Yeah,
that,
totally.
yeah, that's a terrible place to be, I think.
But it also there's what I think is also happening. There's a really gosh, I think the name of the movie is Runaway Jury, and it's fascinating. It's this movie about the gun lobby, and this mass shooting happens, and the parents are suing the gun manufacturer. And
Mm-hmm.
it's the story of the jury process and just like behind the scene, the like
Settle in the
sides.
jury
Yeah,
room.
both sides have paid to try and make the jury selection go in their way, and then tip the jury in their direction, and
Hmm.
all this behind the scenes stuff. It's really fascinating.
I might
But
have to look at it. Yeah.
oh yeah, but I don't want to spoil it too much. But at the end, but it shows not to give it too spoil. All it takes is one person
Mm-hmm.
to tip a collective consciousness to, or like in this case, a jury
Right.
to tip things because they hold this belief so strongly. They convince everybody else. So persuasion
Mm-hmm.
or manipulation, depending on how
Yeah, how
it
you
is,
look at it. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
can can then make it seem like everyone is agreeing or in consensus, but ultimately there's an architect behind that. So it's just and that kind of thing
I
happens so
actually
much.
was in a jury room where that happened. There was one person holding out, and we all wanted to go home for days.
Hmm, hmm.
And one person held out and would not budge. And then she got up and she took this jacket and put it on inside out, which I don't know. I'd never touch it, man. It's all bloody and everything. Puts it on inside out, and all the pieces fell together, and she was right.
Oh my gosh.
And every one of us voted, it was over. And we walked out of there, one person. Yeah. Before
Wow.
that, it was we were going the other way. Please stop doing this. Let us go home.
Yeah, yeah.
What are you doing this for?
And that's an
It was
amazing
wild.
testament.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Mob consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be so careful of just because everybody in the room thinks the same thing
Yeah.
doesn't mean that's the truth.
She got up, put that jacket on inside out, and where they said that he had been stabbed and the cut in the jacket, it all came together. And it was so obvious what had happened, that the person on trial was lying and
Wow.
everybody else was telling the truth. And that's what she was holding on for. And we were all going to let the guy go.
Wow.
I know. It was amazing. It was shocking. Everybody should do jury duty at
I
least.
was going to say, it's also really fascinating going in as a psychic.
Yeah, yeah. I know that was, but at that point, I was not an active psychic.
Oh, I
This
see.
actually was like 45 years ago.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was down in Newark, New Jersey. And almost everybody in there was anti-cop. And she completely turned it around. It was amazing. It was an amazing eye opener. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
So I
yeah.
think, but bringing that to the collective, both directions in terms of just taking a few really powerful heart or thought leaders
Mhm.
like Martin Luther King Jr.,
Right. Right.
who just was the emblem of the civil rights movement and just
But it's
really,
also timing. It's also
Yes.
timing. That's a lot timing. Because Martin Luther King could have been out there 30 years previously and nobody heard him. So a lot of it's timing that people
Yeah,
are ready.
totally. There's
Yeah.
a collective momentum. And this is why I do believe with astrology, timing is
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Speaking of timing, I hate to say it, we've gone way over, but I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop it. So
We could keep
I
going,
have
yeah.
to ask, yeah. So do you think it's going to go well in the next year? Or do you think
What is that? That's a loaded
are we
question.
going
That's a
forward or are
very
we
loaded
going
question,
back?
Barb.
I
What does that mean?
know. I know.
Is what going to go well?
Are we going to go forward or are we going to go back? Is it going to be 1860, the Handmaid's Tale, or?
I'll tell you something else interesting. Now to bring in a little bit different astrology. And this may take on a few more minutes, but it's
No,
very worth
I'm
it.
in. I'm
It's very
in.
worth it. Two other big things are happening right now astrologically. One is the United States is in the midst of its Pluto return.
Mhm.
It takes the planet Pluto about 250 years to come back full circle, to
Yeah.
come back to the place where it was in the zodiac. July
Mhm.
4th, 1776, which is many people consider the birth of the United States,
Mhm.
Pluto was at 27 Capricorn. So for the past several years, the United States has been going through its Pluto return. What the short and sweet, which with other bigger empires or countries that have lasted more than 250 years, is a major restructuring of the country. Like with England, every time on the money they had a Pluto return, Ireland split off, or they consolidated and became the United Kingdom and joined, or there was like a huge change in the lines of what is England, what is Scotland, what is Ireland. With the United States, it's been this major shaking of the foundation of who are we, what is this, coming back to the
Right.
revolutionary impulse that founded this country.
Mhm.
At the same time, and this one is a little bit concerning, I will say,
Mm.
is Uranus. Uranus is the planet of revolution, of major disruption, of breaking free from the status quo. Uranus in the United States' chart was in Gemini. Every time since then that Uranus has been in Gemini, the United States has been involved in a major war. The
Ah.
first one was the Revolutionary War,
Mhm.
when the US was created. The second one was the Civil War. Uranus came back in Gemini. And the third one was World War II.
Ah.
The last time Uranus was in Gemini. So
Yeah.
Uranus is coming back into Gemini very soon and for approximately 7 years.
Mm.
So, based on previous trends,
Yeah.
it is very possible that the US will be in another major war. Whether it's internal, whether it's external, I don't know. And I'm
Yeah.
very much hoping that it is not a war with guns and bombs and things like that. I think it could unfold in other ways. Cyber stuff is a huge thing.
That's what I was wondering. Could it be that we're going into the next evolution of
Of warfare.
humankind, really? Or
Yeah.
maybe not warfare, but our whole world will change
Yeah.
because of AI. Could it be that? Or are we looking at war?
I hope it's that.
Yeah. I threw you a lifeline, man.
Hey, I'll take that. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I hope it's that. I just want to point out that cycle and not just.
It looks like the world is getting ready for a war. I don't understand why they want it, but it seems like a half dozen greedy white guys want it.
Yeah,
You
wars
know,
wars good money
I think that's a lot of it.
ultimately.
It's the economics are really shaky in some of these countries, and this will mask that. But yeah, so do you think we're going to go into that kind of war? Or
It's
does the
possible. I will
astrology
say it's
say it?
possible. I don't want to say for sure because again, I do believe that we can tip things, the
Mm.
free will, and we're seeing such great backlash to war right now in our country. But the proxy wars and the division is so strong.
Yeah.
Something's going to happen. How it shakes out, it's hard to say. But the division is I think at this point we are so, like as you said, entrenched that it's hard not to see some greater conflict unfolding that hopefully then is a short thing that then weaves us into greater harmony through a little bit, like it may need to go into chaos first
Hmm.
before we get to some greater harmony.
Yeah.
And those are the cycles of the universe, chaos and harmony.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's everything.
We got chaos covered pretty good.
We got the chaos covered.
Yeah, yeah. Harmony, I haven't seen harmony in a long time, I don't think. Actually, to the 80s, and then it was a little shaky, but it wasn't really split until the beginning of the 90s that it started to split into
Yeah.
two solid camps, separate camps.
Yeah. And
You know?
again, I mean, I really believe that's by design. There's this third awareness collective that are trying to transcend that created division because
Mhm.
I really fundamentally believe we have a lot more in common than we have that divides us. And there's plenty of people that are aware of that and are trying to unite with what brings us together rather
Right.
than crush the
See,
other
see, I
because the other's
hear
wrong.
that and I know that, but I
Hmm.
don't see any in the between. I see
Hmm.
people in one or the other camp. I don't pay any attention to the politics because I know who
Hmm.
I'm voting for.
Yeah,
I know what side I'm voting for, and
right.
I'm no different than pretty much everybody else. I don't think there are many people that haven't decided yet.
I would also say that's just one that it seems enormous right now,
Hmm.
but that's just one piece of it.
Yeah.
That's not the thing that is necessarily the only deciding factor as to where we go as a collective. I really don't believe that.
What are the other deciding factors then?
Um, what we do with AI
Hmm.
and how we incorporate that as a society, I think is huge. I really do. And so,
Don't you think that our vote will decide that?
no,
Whether it's going to be in the 98% are going to be taken into consideration or not, you know, with AI?
yeah, but I think at the end of the day, that 1% or the 1% of the 1%, it doesn't matter. All those other 98%, whoever's in charge, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
They're still going to call the shots anyways.
yeah. Yeah. No, I think that, and it's been in history where it actually, what the income tax, the when it the golden age, suddenly there was an income tax that really balanced things out. That was a miracle. When you look back on that, I don't know how they managed that one.
Unpopular with absolutely no one.
But it did take us out of the inequality, the extreme inequality we were in at the time. Unfortunately, the next one that took us out was World War II, our
Yeah.
last TARP program.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally. And it is an unfortunate, not a delightful way of looking at things, but one of the things that does tend to unite a country, let's say like the United States, would be war with an external
right,
entity,
right.
right? And so then politics is still there, but then people come together and unite for a bigger thing.
Yeah, common enemy. That would put us all together, but oh my God, the grief of that.
Oh, I'm
Uh,
not hoping for
right.
that.
Oh, I know, but the grief of it and the waste of it, you really hope human nature's gotten past that.
Yes.
Really hope, but you look around and you really wonder, are we able to? Are we ever capable of getting past it? You know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's sad. Anyway,
Yeah.
all right.
But I do believe to end on a little bit of a note of
I was
optimism.
thinking we got to bring
Yeah.
this up.
Yeah. Let's pull the ship up. Yeah.
Really?
I really do believe in the power of a small collective few that hold a more beautiful vision and dream of the way reality can be,
Mhm.
the way our relationships can be between humans, between countries, um, in the way that we value what is valued. I really believe, and let's come back to the Bible. Let's bring it back full circle. In the Bible, Yeshua ben Joseph talks about where when two or more are gathered in the name.
Yeah.
And that is a metaphysical law and truth, which is when you have many people coming together holding something in consciousness, it is exponentially more impactful.
Hmm.
And if you look back like in World War II and you look at the witches that cast a spell of protection over England.
I didn't know about that.
Oh yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, when the Germans were coming when there was this huge threat and the Germans were coming,
Hmm.
all of the druids and the witches got together and collectively cast this huge protection spell over the country.
That's amazing.
Oh
But I
yeah.
don't see it coming together. And especially doing what I'm doing, I hear a lot of us talk about it, but we're all individual. At most, we'll have 10 people who sit down together, but
Hmm.
not what you're talking about with England. That had to be a major coming together.
And it was a necessity. When people are
Right.
coming to bomb you, then that's
Okay.
great motivation.
Suddenly you get serious about this.
So maybe it's not
Yeah.
bad enough.
Yeah. Maybe.
I,
Or maybe
but maybe we could be
yeah.
proactive and we don't need to
Yeah.
get to that.
Yeah.
But let's do this.
Right.
Let's do this, Barb.
Mhm.
Let's plant a seed. Let's
Right.
plant the astral seeds of a more unified and organized conscious collective
Right.
that works together to bring about a more beautiful world and reality with harmony and consciousness that can match and create and override those that seek to divide us.
That would be fabulous. You know what I've always wanted to do is get a group together and see how remote viewing. I want to get a group together, a group of psychics, trained
Uh-huh.
psychics together that will go into the situation and change it. Go in. Yeah. Why not? Why can this not happen? When I look back at January 6th, what would have happened if we had a large group of psychics that actually went into that and turned that crowd? Because I think there are a bunch of people in that crowd that actually just got caught up,
For
you
sure.
know, and just went in and turned that crowd, turned the consciousness of that crowd, but went into it consciously, not just watched, not
Yeah,
just
like astral
prayed.
projecting. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, went into it. And I'm looking for that group. That's a group
I
I want to
love
do.
that. That's
Isn't
gonna
that
be
great? Yeah.
that's like
And
the CIA's
let's leave
Stargate
them
program.
out of it though.
It's taking it to the next level of like a
Right.
special ops, special
Yeah. I mean,
psychic
can
ops.
it happen? I don't see why it can't happen.
I think you're
Can
right.
it happen? Sure. If we could have done it on January 6th, if we can do it on a major vote, that a major vote is coming up in Congress, that whatever, can we go in there and turn the money? Because a lot of what goes on in there is the money, but
For
turn the
sure.
money. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Want to try this?
I'm down for it.
Okay,
I
let's
mean,
do this. Let's
even
get a group of people that can consciously go there. And that's the one thing, we've got to all be on the same page. There
yeah.
almost has to be some training that we all are together on this, on what we are going in for. It's like an artist.
Oh, you have to be so unified to hold the same frequency.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'd have to go in for the same thing.
I will say this is not a collective, but more an individual. But have you heard about those that believe about at the signing of the Declaration of Independence in Saint Germain and
No, I
what
don't know
unfolded
about
there?
that.
So there are quite a few people that believe
Uh-huh.
that things were going in a different direction
Yeah.
in that, what was it called, the Constitutional Congress,
Yeah.
and that someone stood up when things were just very divided and gave this extremely compelling speech
Hmm.
that suddenly, like you said in the jury room, that flipped the jacket inside out. Someone gave this compelling speech that unified everybody, and within a matter of an hour, everyone had signed it, and history was written. And many people believe that was Saint Germain.
I do think it was channeled, and I do think a lot of it was astrology too, wasn't it? One of those times what we're coming up to now in
Yes.
2025. Yeah,
Yes, indeed.
I know.
The
What? I feel
conversation could
bad for
continue
her.
endlessly.
Yeah,
These are with things like this, how can you prove anything? I
right,
think people can get all excited and try and prove each other this happened or that happened. And at the end of the
right.
day, it's a story at this
Hmm.
point.
No, I do believe psychically, consciousness, there was a lot going on there, and there was a lot of communication going on. I think there was a greater council that maybe did not have bodies that were working through these people.
Mhm.
I mean, there was just too much enlightenment. There was, when
Yeah.
you go back and you read some of what they've written, I mean, my God, how did you get those people together that were so smart, so enlightened, so intelligent, and so able to do that? And
To
to
do the
have that
impossible.
number, yeah, and to have that number of them come together, that was pretty much of a miracle. And the fact that the United States really, if you look at democracies, most democracies don't hold. They don't
Hmm.
hold together. So the fact that it has held together, it's quite a bit of a miracle. And I do
Yeah.
think there was like an over council. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
That was working through these people.
I
Maybe
would
one of them was
probably agree
Saint
with you. Yeah.
Germain. Yeah. Maybe one was Saint Germain. Yeah. Anyway, we do have to bring it up, bring it to a close at this point, because you and I could go on for hours.
Yeah.
We
So we
actually
call forth to
have,
the
yeah.
super council to help us.
We actually have. Yeah. I know. God, I wish that super council would come back now and work through people like that, people
Mhm.
like who started this country. But anyway, so anybody who wants to get hold of you and wants to work with you, how did they do that?
Yes, my website is nicklasky.com, Lasky. And you can write to me through that. There's a place to message me. I also post on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram, message me on Instagram. There's a few things that I have coming up. I'm always doing events here in Richmond. I do ceremonies with shamanic journeys, with cacao, with weaving and
And we never
astrology.
even got into the ceremony, so we'll
Oh,
have to
yeah.
talk
Well,
again. Yeah.
yeah, part
Yeah.
two.
Yeah, exactly.
I do travel to New York quite a bit, so I'm coming
Mhm.
up and doing a big all-day immersion in nature with ceremony on October 5th
Mm.
for those in New York. But in November, I'm
Mhm.
doing a weekend-long deep meditation training, and that'll be the 2 weekends before Thanksgiving. The
Mhm.
info is not out yet, but I'm going to
And
be
where
doing.
was that? Is that New York or
It'll
Richmond?
be a virtual. It'll be virtual.
Oh,
It'll
it
be
will
on
be.
Zoom.
Wow. Yeah. That's
Hmm.
counterintuitive, isn't it?
I
We
just
were
did one in
talking about
person. I
get
did one
rid
in
of you.
person in the beginning.
Yeah.
Here's the beautiful thing is with the pandemic, some
Hmm.
beautiful things that it did for me is
Right.
it forced me to go on Zoom.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
suddenly then I have students in Hong Kong and England,
And it did
Australia.
force us to recognize the energy that you could work with through electronics. We had
Yes.
always before that been together, come together for it, and didn't even know that we could work electronically and still hold the energy. So it did
Yes.
give us, that was a huge breakthrough, really, for that.
Yeah.
So
We prefer,
yeah.
though we cast our vote for in person as preference.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, there's that need still. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if anybody also is interested in learning astrology, or you can check out my Instagram, goes straight to my digital store. I'm going to start another live course in January with tarot, but I've got plenty of astrology and tarot courses available online.
Okay. Now, do you work individually with people? Like,
I do.
would you do somebody's chart, that kind of
Yes.
thing? You still do
Yes.
that? Okay, good.
Yes, I do one-on-one
Perfect.
consultations as well. And the
Yeah.
best way to contact me would be through my website, whatever that, put your info in and submit a message.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for being on. It's been fascinating. I don't know if I feel good or bad because now I am nervous. But I really appreciate your being on. The information was fabulous. Fabulous.
Yeah, it's so wonderful to meet you. And
Get it.
yeah, thanks for having me on, and maybe a part two in the future.
That's what I'd love to. Yeah.
But otherwise, we'll continue to bring everything back into harmony with Mercury retrograde and everything that you got going on.
And let's try and do that. Get a group together to do the projection. Because I think we need it. I think we need a large group of people and
Yeah.
psychics to
John would
be able
definitely
to, yeah, to be able to turn. And I think I mentioned it to him. I'm terrible on the follow-up. Yeah.
Well,
I know.
how it goes.
But can you imagine going in and turning wars around and yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're all just moments. Yeah.
Yeah, they
Important
are.
moments.
And they
Moments.
are like the woman turning the jacket inside out. In that jewelry room, it was just a moment and everything became clear. Yeah, I
Wow.
know. I know.
I love
But thanks so much for being on, Nick. I loved it.
it. Thank you.
All right. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Take care.